welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is episode 197. My name is Adil Ahmad, and I have misophonia. This week I'm talking to Tomasz, who's a primary care doctor from Poland. We talk about how misophonia is not well known in Poland and how it's often misunderstood. Tomasz explains that its triggers are mostly connected to people he knows well, such as family and close friends. He also mentions being triggered by eating sounds and hard, labored breathing. Tomasz discusses how he explains misophonia to others, often using a neurobiological explanation. He talks about living conditions he had growing up and how they may have contributed to his miso. And he shares his coping methods and the challenges he faces daily in social situations. Tomasz also talks about his discovery of misophonia, the term, and the importance of raising awareness about the condition. After the show, let me know what you think. You can reach out by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at misophoniapodcast. By the way, please do head over, leave a quick review or rating wherever you listen to the show. It really helps drive us up in the search algorithms that help us reach more listeners. A few of my usual announcements. Of course, thanks for the incredible ongoing support of our Patreon supporters. If you feel like contributing, you can read all about the various levels at patreon.com/misophoniapodcast. All right, now here's my conversation with Tomasz. Tomasz, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
It's nice to be here, thanks.
Yeah, so do you want to tell us, I guess, kind of where you're located?
So I'm in Poland. I'm Polish, come from Poland, live in a city in the western part of Poland called Poznań. Uh,
Cool, okay. And I guess, what do you do over there?
I work as a primary care physician. We call them family physicians over here. I'm not sure about America.
Yes, something similar, yeah. Uh,
Mhm.
General physician or family physician.
Oh,
Um,
right.
cool. Well, I guess maybe yeah, maybe starting there, kind of in your job, in your day to day. How's misophonia? I guess you're treating a lot of people, and all kinds of people probably come in.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, it's not something that people usually bring up at all. Like maybe once or twice, I got a chance to talk to a patient about it. It like came up uh, during like an uh, probably when we were talking about uh, anxiety that they
Mm,
said that patient might have been experiencing, and maybe it came to my mind actually, and I asked them upfront about it, like, do you have any like sound sensitivities? And they said, oh yes, yes. And I was able to give them this term misophonia because they didn't necessarily know it
yeah,
themselves. Yeah, but apart from, I don't think I'm not sure about America, but in Poland it's not such a well-known condition. I mean, not at all.
yeah.
Most people don't know the name. They would be interested if you mentioned it. Like, I do it a lot. I say, like, in order to explain myself why I'm not willing to sit at the table,
Yeah.
I would say, oh, sorry, I have like a very bad case of misophonia. And they would say, oh, what's that? And like, most of them are super interested. Same with my patients.
Hmm.
But yeah, but the recognition of this condition it's not very widespread, I would say.
Yeah, I've heard outside of the U.S. and UK, it's not very well known. I mean, it's not known enough here either, but a little bit more, I guess, in other parts, including Eastern Europe. I mean, do
Mm.
you get triggered at work too? Like, a patient comes in, and you're getting triggered, but you have to like help them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm a fairly typical case in the sense of uh, my triggers being mostly connected to people that I know very well.
Hmm.
So most of the patients, I mean, there are no patients that I have an intimate relationship with, so I don't really get triggered at work. No, not at all. Yeah.
Gotcha.
thankfully.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Um, and yeah, I mean, so I guess what are your usual triggers? I guess I'm thinking they're home, maybe with family or friends.
Oh, yeah, these are fairly typical as well. Most of them have to do with like eating.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the one that I'm most embarrassed about, and I think it's also fairly common to be embarrassed about this one, is that I'm very triggered by very like labored breathing. It's the worst for me.
Yeah, like labored breathing, like heavy breathing, or very audible
Yeah.
breathing. Yeah. Well, how do you explain it? Have you tried to explain it to the people that are
Mhm.
biggest triggers for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would usually say that uh, mm, I would start off by saying that I'm very embarrassed, and I also think that that's what most people would do
Mm-hmm.
because it just sounds so weird to people. So I'd say that I'm embarrassed, but I would try to give a neurobiological explanation for it. Nothing fancy or anything like that. I would say that just my brain malfunctions. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but there are certain sounds that set me off, and this have to do with mostly with those physiological sounds that people make, like while eating or yeah, breathing itself as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, to most people, for most people, it sounds very peculiar. But I also think that I don't know how it is in America, but I'm sure it's way better than in Poland. But even in Poland, people are now very accustomed to hearing about people who might be autistic
Mm,
or people who might have any other neurodivergent stuff
mm-hmm.
going on. And I think that it has also like sensitize people to problems like that. Like maybe if we didn't have this awareness of, let's say, autism, it would be more difficult to give this sort of explanation or even start talking about it. But because we already have that, I think that people have easier time like wrapping their heads around this and this sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, there's been a lot more awareness of these other conditions that sound similar. Yeah, I guess maybe I don't know, maybe rewinding, going back to when you first started noticing misophonia. Do you remember kind of how old you were, what was going on?
Oh yeah, I was reading up on it, and I read that most people can usually recall a particular moment in their lives, usually when they are very little, when it started becoming really
Mm-hmm.
bad for them. I cannot really recall. I think that it has always been with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how common is that people would say that I have always been like that. Because to my surprise, I read that most people can recall a particular moment. I
That's
cannot at
interesting because
all.
I thought that most people can't recall an exact moment. Although I've had a number of people who come on who have said that they remember the moment. I just kind of remember the general time frame, but not an exact
Hmm.
moment.
Yeah, same with me. I just remember that I was very little, and what I remember is like a progression. Like what I mean is that I started reacting very badly to one particular person, who
Hmm.
was my brother.
Mm,
And I remember that I would refuse to sit at the table with him. I would cry and I would say that he is disgusting and so on. Like,
yeah,
I'm not proud of it, but yeah, that's what I
yeah,
can recall. And then it just, yeah, whatever reaction I had to my brother, I started to develop the same sort of reaction to any other member in my family. And the degree to which I was sensitized to the sounds that they were making also varied. Like with my brother, it was pretty bad. because he was kind of a loud eater.
Hmm.
Like with my sister, it was much easier for me. Yeah, but I had like yeah, I couldn't really sit comfortably around any of them at some point. Yeah, and persist and still like that. I wouldn't be able to like have a Christmas meal with them around them. But now they're very understanding of that. So
Yeah, well, that I'd love to hear about how that progression happened to them, being understanding. Like, how did they? Obviously, you said you were calling him disgusting. What was their reaction?
yeah, I mean, I was like a little kid when I
Yeah.
did that. So he acted like any other
Hmm.
little kid who is being slighted. He would just smack me or something like that. Yeah,
How about?
but I think that it's funny, like when people see what kind of uh, reaction you actually have. Like they see that it's very visceral.
Yeah.
Usually, they know that something's going on, that you're not making this up. Like they see your turmoil, and they might. But I'm sure they still think it's very peculiar to have this sort of uh, reaction and so on. But like they see what's happening, and they like I don't think that most people that are familiar with people that have this would deny that there is something going on. Like, and
Hmm.
the same with my family. Like they like very early on they knew that they have a problem. They didn't have a solution for me, but they wouldn't really give me uh, any hard time. They would let me like eat alone and so on.
They
Maybe
give you the
that's
benefit of
different
the
with
doubt that something was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because why would I make something like this up, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're a
They're
intelligent
very
kid. You're on your way to being a doctor. It's not like you. Yeah. It's not like you're doing something on purpose, just to annoy
it could
people.
have been
Mm.
yeah, it could have been worse with them. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are families I'm sure there are families that place much more emphasis on like eating together or whatever. So luckily my family really didn't, so maybe it was easier to like skip family meals and so on. But for some, I imagine that some people, when they grow up, it might be more problematic for them to like say, "Sorry, I won't like sit with you all because I find you disgusting."
Yeah, yeah, no, that's an important thing that has come up is, yeah, some families obviously, like you said, place a huge emphasis on sitting around the family meal, and but others try to bond outside of meals, doing other things maybe that are not triggering, like going for walks or whatnot. So,
Yeah.
how did it?
Uh,
Do you remember like what was
mhm.
going around? Or was there anything unusual happening in your life or in your home around the time when you maybe started to have triggers?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I don't really remember anything particular happening, like one event that could have
Yeah.
uh, like brought this on. But I was thinking about it, and I think that it's like my misophonia has something to do with our living conditions. Like I had four siblings, and for an American, it might be unimaginable, I guess. But I had four siblings, like uh, my mom and my dad, and we lived in a flat that was 35 meters square.
Mm.
So it was very like very cramped, and you just cannot sit alone for a second. Even if you go to another room and you are theoretically alone, you can hear uh, everything what's happening. Um,
Yeah, that's very
mm,
small for six people to be in an
yeah,
apartment.
yeah, I think so. So I know. I guess that if you are like it can happen like with some people. That's my thinking, that if you are not given any time for yourself to like get some rest from all the noises and so on, it might mm, so happen that you get like oversensitized to
Hmm.
them. Yeah, that's my like working hypothesis about my misophonia.
Yeah, and I think it
That
doesn't have to affect everybody. It could be that you know, some people are predisposed to being more
yeah,
sensitive, and then
yeah, sure.
if some living condition switches it on or exacerbates it, that could be the
Yeah,
what it takes.
yeah, yeah. I was also I have always been very worried about. I'm not really worried. I was very curious and maybe a little disturbed by the idea that I might be uh, atypical neurologically. Like
Hmm.
I didn't know what. Like I always thought to myself, if I had to have a brain scan, I guess I would be uh, very interested if it would show something. Even though I know there are like no specific uh, neuroimaging neuroimaging findings that are connected to misophonia. And a week ago, interestingly enough, I had like out of nowhere generalized seizure episode
Mm.
for the first time in my life, and I did have to have an MRI scan, and I got my results yesterday, and it's like showed a lot of non-specific but interesting findings.
Mm.
It says that I have like a hyperdensity in this part of the brain, and the radiologist ascribes it to like perinatal injury
Mm.
or something like. So it's very interesting to see. I mean, I'm sure that I like wouldn't be able to connect any of those findings to whatever I could find in the literature about misophonia. It's interesting to see that my brain, that there is some evidence of my brain being a bit
Atypical.
uh,
Yeah.
critical or even injured, you can say,
Yeah.
because yeah,
Yeah, that is
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, there isn't right, there is, like you said, there isn't any direct I guess neuroimaging connection to misophonia. I think that research is going to is starting to happen or is in the planning stages, but yeah, I don't know of any um yet, but that's going to be an interesting direction for sure. What about other well, so just to set the record straight, none of your siblings develop misophonia?
oh, I mean, yeah, that's so funny because I'm not that close with my
Mm.
siblings, but when I think about it, I think that two of my sisters might have the same
Mm.
issue. Maybe not to the same degree, but yeah, I can remember for sure that they were very triggered by maybe by uh,
Mm.
another sets of sounds. Like I remember my sister being very annoyed by anybody pacing up and down a room. She
Mhm.
would always scream. So I guess if I were to like observe them, if I had a chance, I would pick up more stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Were you you say you're not super close to them. Was there anything related to maybe how you were reacting to misophonia or just other life things?
yeah, I think it's other life
Yeah.
things. I think I could deal with the misophonia stuff, and I'm sure they would be understanding. It
Mhm.
was like some other stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. What about at school and, friends, teachers?
Yeah, like yeah, I would react badly to like some of my closest friends. Uh, Again, I always need to have a very like not to say a very intimate relationship with somebody that I don't want to say that it must be a romantic
Yeah.
relationship or anything like that, but I must be very close to a person to even notice how they sound.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I'm around people that are very loud eaters, and I don't have any close relationship to them, I would notice that they like sound awful when they eat, but it doesn't bother me at all. Which is the strangest thing. Like you listen to the same sounds, but they are not produced by people that are close to you, and it doesn't affect you at all.
Right.
It's it's a mystery. And also that's what people say with animals. Like they find their dogs making those like slurping sounds or whatever cute, but they couldn't stand it if a human did it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
so it's,
Did and then did I mean, did you tell friends? Do you still tell friends about misophonia? I mean, these are the ones that you are close enough to that they trigger you.
yeah, because I think that it's like the honesty is the best policy. If
Mm.
they see that I act weird, it's better to like give the explanation
Better tell them why you're
upfront.
glaring at them.
Yeah, and they can like read up on it. Maybe they will find it interesting. Some of them would say like, "Oh yes, my brother has it,"
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, so yeah, I always do that. I think it's wise to like tell people. And also, I'm never really dramatic about it because I mean, it's like misophonia for me. It can be quite limiting. I think I have a pretty severe case of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I'm very depressed about. And when I talk to people about it, al- I also almost try to like laugh it off. Like, oh, I have this strange thing. You
Yeah.
won't believe me. It's so embarrassing, but I cannot be around you when you.
You start off trying to
Yeah,
kind of make light of it a little bit to kind of
yeah, yeah,
break the ice about it, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
And humor
exactly.
does help if they if it is found to be funny, that can kind of help situation.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm more worried about like uh, it has happened to me that I have talked to a person about misophonia, and they would come up to me like 1 or 2 weeks later, and they would say, "I think I have misophonia too,"
Mm.
because now I'm noticing all these sounds, and my mother is bothering me a lot, like when she is, and I think I have the same
Yeah, yeah,
condition, like a massive history. It's like you're inducing people to like
yeah.
have condition. It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that is always a worry. I don't know. I don't know if it's been studied or even um, looked at kind of anecdotally. But yeah, because I mean, some people have it. But yeah, I mean, I haven't heard about it enough to think that it's like misophonia is contagious. But I can see how maybe people who are maybe on the edge can start to notice
Yeah.
things more. What about
It's also
yeah.
yeah, it's also linguistically like it's very interesting.
Hmm.
Like if you have a term for it, you can like recognize this in
Mm,
yourself. Like, oh yeah, there is this thing, and I think that now that I think of it, I
hmm.
think I have those symptoms as well. Because it's also like a continuum, right?
Yeah.
Everybody gets annoyed by sounds, so yeah, it's pretty easy to like diagnose yourself with misophonia.
Right. Did you I mean, speaking of diagnoses, did you ever I guess have did you ever try to see a professional about it growing up?
Oh, I didn't. I couldn't really even imagine whom I would have to turn to. I like now. I think a psychiatrist would be a good person to talk to. But I did see like psychiatrists about different stuff
Hmm.
when I was growing up and when I was like in my late teens and so on. And the experience that I had with psychiatrists was underwhelming to say the least.
Yeah.
So the idea of talking to them about this even weirder stuff, that like a mood disorder, yeah, it wouldn't really occur to me, and I'm sure it wouldn't occur to them either to like take it seriously.
Right, right. What about, and you don't have to go into detail, but was there any overlapping comorbid conditions? Like, many of us have ADHD and other things. I'm just curious if there's anything like that came up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, with me it's like anxiety, mood disorders, and so on. People that I know that are well versed in psychology, like the psychiatrists or psychologists, would always tell me, like, after getting to know me, that I must be like autistic.
Mm,
And I never know whether to believe them because I'm not very smart about those things myself.
hmm.
I don't know much about it. But I don't know, maybe there's something to it. Maybe I should see a professional about this and also bring up misophonia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Would you know what were some of the things that they noticed, or said that they noticed that led them to say that?
That I'm autistic.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm quite cynical about it because I think that whenever a person, uh, like that's my experience, when I talk to people and when I concentrate on what I want to say, especially in my like mother tongue, I can do that
Hmm.
much more efficiently than I can do in English. So if I speak Polish and I want to like convey an idea, I do concentrate and I like to say whatever is on my mind quite like coherently and for it to like make sense. You know what I mean? To be as precise as
Yeah.
you can possibly be. And when I do that, a lot of people, psychologists and psychiatrists included, would say, "Oh, you're autistic," which is kind of funny. It's like a stereotype of an autistic
Right.
person, like a person that would like be very detailed in their response and so on. It doesn't it really make sense to me?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they really think that, or maybe they are very, very poor judges of that
Hmm.
themselves, even though you would think they would be better at that. I don't know what to think about it, but I'm sure I'm not such a good judge of myself as well. So I'm not sure. I
Interesting.
think I'm good with people. Like my little stereotype of autistic people is that they are deficient socially
Hmm.
in some ways, right? That's what I think about when I hear autism. That that autistic people might not be very strong at social interactions, and I think of myself as quite adept at that. So,
Right.
and,
Interesting. Yeah. And so, I mean, what about what about like coping methods as you were growing? Well, actually, let's talk about maybe when you found out that misophonia was a thing and had a name, and you started to do a little bit of research.
oh yeah, yeah. I was a student and I like came across this term. I think it was on Wikipedia.
Hmm.
I read Misophonia and I clicked on that. Yeah, and I read the explanation and yeah, that it was it's a very nice memory. Like when you, I think it's probably similar for other people as well. Like when you discover that there is a
Yeah.
name for whatever experience you had been having your whole life. It's kind of cool. And it's also funny because I remember when I was growing up, I was embarrassed about all those symptoms that I had, and it somehow never occurred to me to like look it up because I think that as teens we are usually very narcissistic, and we might think that whatever we are experiencing is so uncommon, probably unheard of, and it must not have a name. We are unique and so on.
Well,
But
also we
then,
think we're so embarrassed by it and ashamed
yeah,
to have these
yeah,
reactions.
exactly, yeah. That's another thing. Yeah, but it still blows my mind that I would that prior to that instance, I had never like looked it up
Mm-hmm.
because I Google stuff all the time and also stuff that is of little relevance to me, just out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing that I had been struggling with for so long, somehow it's like, yeah, never occurred to me to like research it. It's fine.
Right. So, I mean, what were your, I guess, what were your coping methods growing up, and how they kind of changed over time, if they have?
Yeah, I remember that one of the triggers that I had when I was living with my family in this very small flat that we had was people uh, just sleeping, like whatever sounds you make during sleep. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't need to be snoring, just breathing,
Yep.
and the sound was obviously compounded by the fact that it was very silent at night.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I shared bedroom with three of my siblings, so there was it was like an echo chamber.
Yeah.
So I would just put fingers into my ears and I would try to get through the night. So that was, yeah, a very unsophisticated method. Then I discovered that there was something called earplugs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I bought myself like a whole supply of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I wasn't really sophisticated about my methods. I would just like mostly mechanical barriers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, obviously, like, yeah, leaving the room, or just
Yeah,
earplugs
exactly.
or headphones at some point, probably.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do people usually say?
That's a yeah. I mean, those are basically it. Especially before they even know it has a name, and have heard about coping methods. They usually would, yeah, decide leave situations or sound blocking devices like earplugs and headphones, noise
Mhm,
canceling headphones.
mhm,
Um, yeah, not super sophisticated, or trying to get accommodations. This is usually after you know it has a name, but well, I don't know exactly. I guess you weren't. Yeah, you said you were in school. I mean, I'm guessing the answer is no. But did you ever try to get accommodations at the schools you were in?
Oh no, I actually remember once I I was we were having a class at a hospital, and we were in this room with a patient that was having a meal, and
Hmm.
somehow, I mean, I did say that strangers could make all the sounds in the world, and it didn't really bother me. But at that particular instance, it did bother me for some reason. Maybe I was very tired
Yeah,
or sleep deficient because that's what's always
this is doctor's life.
happening to. Oh no, I was going to say that if I'm sleep deficient, my misophonia flares
That's
up.
common.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's what I would also think that might be common. So maybe I had to like pull an all-nighter. But anyway, I was standing in front of in front of this patient, and I did feel this urge to leave because she was like enjoying this meal in a very dramatic fashion. So
Yeah.
I did leave, and then my professor called me out on that, and I would say like half jokingly. Obviously, I was being serious, but I was trying to make light of it,
Hmm.
and also get out of trouble. Oh, I have this thing called misophonia, and this professor would say, "Why are you like learning about those non-existent conditions? You should like put more effort into learning about heart failure or something." Yeah, so that was like the only instance of me like mentioning the it to another like medical a person from the medical field, and the reaction was typical. And I don't really blame them for it. I'm sure that if I didn't have this condition, I would also like laugh it off if somebody came up to me and said that that's the explanation for them, like abruptly leaving the room to everybody else's horror. Yeah,
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I guess that is understandable.
yeah.
If they don't know what it is, and yeah, that was the sudden reaction. Um, then what about so yeah, I mean, now as an adult, what about like relationships, friends, maybe even
Mhm.
romantic? Like, has it affected those?
Yeah, like whenever I get close to a person, I, that's what I also say to people at some point. Like, I would say, oh, now I'm realizing that I'm like starting to develop some real feelings for you because I'm starting to get very upset when you eat around me.
I
And
love you,
yeah,
and
I
I can prove
honestly,
it because I can't stand the way
yeah,
that you eat.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say like it's my like a proof of my affection for you that I
Happy
find it
Valentine's
disgusting.
Day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And actually, the last person that I told it to, like the reaction was very positive. Oh, that's fantastic. So yeah, because I usually warn them that if you see this happening, it means that I care deeply about you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how's that worked out? Uh, does it last longer after that, or I'm just kind of curious how that.
You mean if it leads to
Yeah, does it lead
uh,
to conflict, or yeah, or um,
not that not that I recall.
yeah,
Like usually, I mean, I think that people are mm, a lot of the time they are uncomfortable with the idea that we cannot like watch a movie
mm,
and like eat at the same time,
right.
which is what people do for fun. Like yeah, and that's maybe it takes out some of the it takes out some fun out of the time that I
Hmm.
spend together with those people. But I don't think that it's a deal breaker for anybody. Uh, so yeah, I mean it's I think it's more problematic for me that than for anybody whom I might be spending my time with. They're just like perplexed, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What about like visual triggers like musikinesia? Do you have those as well?
Oh, I find it very interesting that people do have them. I don't have it,
Mm,
thankfully.
yeah,
So,
that
and is it common, like in your
it's
experience?
pretty common. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Most people that come on, yeah, at some point, I don't want to pass it on to you if it is in any way contagious, but usually, I mean, it doesn't take that long. It takes, I don't know, a matter of maybe a short number of years that it'll, if it doesn't happen right away, then just the
Mhm.
sight of the triggers will cause issues.
Oh, so maybe that's in store for me.
Interesting
So,
for you. I mean, you don't even get triggered by misophonia if unless you really know a person. So that's all
mhm.
already kind of interesting. But
Uh-huh. So would you say that that's not that typical?
I would say that well, it's it's common that it's it's usually well I would say it's usually the people say that the people closest to them trigger them the most, but that kind of makes sense because you're always around those people. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, if I'm in a if somebody like ephemerally just kind of passes me and they're making the same kind of trigger sound, it won't cause as much of a problem. But if I mean if I spend even like 10, 15 minutes around them, I will notice it and it'll be a problem. Um,
Oh. Okay.
But
So
if
you
it's,
have even
pardon
a
me?
more severe case of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
misophonia.
I think it is more. Yeah, I think I would say anecdotally it is more. It's more common that even most strangers in most situations will cause the reaction. But if you're just even
Hmm.
if you're just passing somebody by in the street, and you just hear it once, it's not as likely that I'm going to be triggered by it. But but if they're
Mhm.
walking next to me as I'm walking down the
Mhm.
street and they start triggering, I'm going to have to move. You know.
Mhm.
So
So it cannot be fleeting. It must like go
yeah,
on.
yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Yeah, if it's fleeting, it's less likely because I think my brain, like for most of us, won't assign a danger if it's a
Mhm.
fleeting thing. It's only if it picks up on it a little bit more with some more regularity that it kind of assigns danger to it.
Mhm.
So, but it seems like you know for you, ironically, that's the other weird thing. I mean, ironically, it's like the people that you're most close to that you would think your brain has, you know,
Yeah.
reduced the danger signals that it's actually causing danger. And I don't know, maybe it's because your brain just is like, okay, this danger is always around me. I don't really care who it is. It's just, it's just a danger
Yeah, but
signal.
that's very interesting what
Yeah.
you're saying. I have never thought about it like this contradiction that I'm
Hmm.
triggered by people that I theoretically should feel safe around. Yeah,
Right.
it's funny. Mm.
I mean, there must be some part of the brain that is not making that connection that you know it's kind of almost like two parts of the brain. One part is obviously has assigned safety to it, but this part, the misophonia part, has not gotten that message.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
so,
And how common is it, like in your experience from talking to people?
mhm.
I think that what I'm most embarrassed about is that my immediate reaction to somebody uh, making those sounds around me is to mock them.
Mm.
Like, and that's the worst because that's very offensive to people to be mocked for the way they eat or let alone breathe. So would you say that this is common to like have this reaction
How do you
to like a
mock
real
them? Yeah, so there's a mimicking that is actually very common, surprisingly common. So
Mhm.
if well, a lot of people will mimic, as in they'll start to make the sound or the action,
Yeah,
and as almost as a also a coping method because you kind of feel better about it, and there was actually a study by Dr. Kumar about that um, discovered that I mean, you're a doctor, you might know about mirror neurons, mirror neurons in the brain that are
oh,
watching, um, you know, watching somebody else. They in misophones, they tend to go crazy. Um,
oh,
do a more they're more activated in misophones than non-misophones,
mhm,
especially watching orofacial reactions that are causing them distress. And
mhm.
one of the theories is that the imbalance of this overactivity of the mirror neurons is what's causing the distress. And if you can kind of um, as you're mimicking, if you mimic, you're kind of like basically rebalancing a little bit in some way.
Wow, that's amazing. So now I'm realizing that there is much more interesting research about it that I thought there was.
Mhm.
I have to
There
read
isn't
up on it.
enough, but this you might want to look up Dr. Kumar's paper,
Uh-huh.
but it was from just a couple of years ago, and there was also
Mhm,
another paper by Dr. Heather Hansen kind of
mhm.
in response to that.
Wow.
That was also looking at neuroimagery.
Mhm,
But the one criticism of Dr. Kumar's is that it was so focused on orofacial reactions, and it tried to use mirror neurons to kind of suggest an explanation for misophonia when not all triggers are orofacial. There are other triggers, so
yeah,
there's more to the story, but that was definitely an interesting data point. Um,
yeah, it sounds amazing that they did those studies. Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. That you find so yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. Like by mocking, did you mean you don't mean just like
yeah,
telling them that they're
yeah,
disgusting, but like that you're actually um mocking, like mimicking them.
yeah. That was a poor choice of word on my part. Yeah, I meant like, yeah, mimicking.
Mm-hmm.
What I meant. Yeah, some people do react very badly to it, like understandably. Uh, yeah, and I was wondered whether it's common, or maybe that's my.
Yeah. There was actually a new paper in the past year about mimicry by Dr. Paris Ash. Actually, she's not she's not a doctor. She's not a PhD yet, but she's
Mhm,
um, but she's in a PhD program for looking at misophonia related issues. But she published a
mhm.
paper in the past year specifically about mimicry as well. So that might be interesting for
Wow.
you to look at.
Yeah, I have to look this stuff up. It sounds amazing.
So yeah. But yeah, and I guess yeah, I'm curious. Any other thoughts from you, like from obviously your doctor, a doctor who's not obviously studying misophonia, but you have
Mhm,
misophonia. I don't know if you've I don't know, had any other thoughts about or theories or fleeting fleeting philosophies
mhm.
about misophonia and kind of what it can be about.
Oh, yeah, I wish I was smarter about this stuff. At this point, I have never really thought about it deeply. I haven't really researched it.
Hmm.
I'm mostly curious about what other people
Yeah,
experience. I have no original ideas of my own.
that's okay. You got plenty of stuff. I'm sure on your mind, yeah, on your mind, being a doctor and taking care of people. But
Yeah, and having had my first seizure, that's on my mind now.
yeah, well, I don't know. Do you? I mean, obviously, it's not related to misophonia, but well, first of all, I'm just curious. Are you okay, or is there like a
Yeah,
prognosis
like
for
for the
more?
last
Yeah.
yeah, like for the last week, I was just very worried that I might have a brain tumor, so
Mm,
I was very happy to see those results yesterday. Also very fascinated that there was so much unrelated, like that there were so many incidental findings there. It's just a funny thing. Like there's like another neurological thing that's happening to
mm-hmm.
me. Yeah, I just find it not overwhelming now. Now that I feel like I'm out of the woods because I got the imaging results and they don't look too bad. I just find it uh, very fascinating that
Yeah.
yet another thing is happening to me. And
Right.
also, I should have mentioned that I have like a very not an uncommon connective tissue disorder that is genetic, uh, but it does have some uh, uh, like people that suffer from the same condition or have the same syndrome, I should have said, do report that they have a lot of um, a lot of um, like weird uh, anxious reactions to a lot of weird stuff. And I'm on this group, on this Facebook group, uh, with people that have this condition,
What's the
and
name
I
of this
try
condition?
to, or it's like a Marfan syndrome.
Mm.
Not know if you have heard about it.
How do you
Uh,
spell that?
it's Marfan.
Okay, Marfan. Okay, I think I've heard of
Yeah.
it, but it's the first time I've kind of heard it on this podcast, at least.
Yeah, and I looked up misophonia on this group, and yeah, it turned out that a lot of people mention it.
Mm.
But then again, misophonia is very common.
Right.
So in order to establish any link, Yeah, I would have to be a researcher myself.
Okay,
Or point
we're just
somebody
so we're not
to.
it's not directly linked. I'm just kidding. We're
Oh
not gonna.
no, it's just like
I
anecdotal.
know.
Like I see a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that's it's an interesting data point as well.
Yeah. But people with this sort of condition that I have, they have a lot of health issues, like completely unrelated
Hmm.
to any of that, and that predisposes them to just love talking about like their own health. So that's also like
Mm,
a confounding factor. Like they might be mentioning misophonia because they just focus so much on their own well-being.
gotcha,
So,
gotcha. Yeah.
uh,
Well, interesting. Well, yeah, Tomasz, yeah, okay, getting about an hour here. It's kind of flown
uh,
by. Um,
yeah.
and we yeah covered a lot of ground, but yeah, I'm curious. Anything else you want to share about your experience or thoughts on misophonia?
Oh, I think I have overshared by this point.
No, yeah, we have
That's-
covered a lot. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but no, this is great. And I hope
I won't be sending this episode to my friends.
okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Or that supervising doctor that.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is great. Thanks again. I hope everything continues to work out. After your results from your MRI, and yeah, appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Yeah.
I think it's good to have people from other parts of the world, and so yeah,
Yeah.
it's great to have your sharing whatever you share, everything you shared.
Thanks for having me. I'm like I have mentioned, I'm like a big fan of this show. I'm so happy that it exists. It brings me so much joy to just listen to people. I find it very entertaining out of the time. So to talk to you, it's like a dream come true.
Oh,
Thanks.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you, Tomasz, for the kind words, and I hope awareness for miso grows in Poland and other parts of the world. If you liked this episode, don't forget to leave a quick review or rating. You can just hit the 5 stars wherever you listen to this podcast. Reach me by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or go to the website misophoniapodcast.com. It's usually easiest to send a message on Instagram at Misophonia Podcast. You can follow there or Facebook at Misophonia Podcast, and on Twitter, or X, I should say, it's Misophonia Show. Support the show by visiting the Patreon at patreon.com/Misophonia Podcast. The music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.